Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is a really interesting entrepreneur and author. His name is Joseph Gulesserian. He's an entrepreneur in the consumer products business. He's developed and brought brands to market in international markets in the health and beauty space. And we're going to talk a little bit more about his background and his entrepreneurialism. But he's written a really interesting book called The Practical MBA on Economics, What They Don't Teach You in Business School, which is available on Amazon. But tonight, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and how Joseph is really worried that it's going to lead to mass unemployment and the end of democracy. Wow, that's a topic. So why is artificial intelligence going to lead to mass unemployment to start with?
Well, that's a very good question. And it's going to create incredible efficiencies. It's going to, especially in managerial positions and entry-level positions, but I'll be very, very specific with you. Let's say I'm a junior lawyer and I'm just entering in a law firm, and I might need 40 hours to prepare a case. AI will do it in about 15 minutes. And then you can massage the case for about 2-3 hours and you're ready to go. What does that really mean? It means that as a law firm, I can't bill out at $250 an hour, let's say 40 hours or so, a nice $10,000 billing there, when it's primarily done by AI. So that will hurt the entry-level positions there. You're seeing automation as retribution for minimum wages. You're going to see it in the food industry. I'll give you another example. Approximately in the United States, I'm sure the number's same in Canada, because I should know this, I'm Canadian. 12% of our employment is driving related, from Uber to heavy trucks. AI is going to do a better job than we can. If you're a teacher, I'm going to give you an example. If we get into AI 4, like level 4, which we're going to go to, where it starts having what we'd consider, pardon me, a sense of consciousness, if you will, because that's a very debatable topic. What'll happen is you're dealing with avatars with 250 IQs, and my teacher's giving me a lecture on mathematics or history or anything like that, and I go, I don't want to talk to you. In fact, I don't want to talk to my parents. I'm Johnny Slick here in high school because you've only got an IQ of 105. I got an avatar at 250. It can do anything I want. So it'll take a lot of civil service jobs away if they don't fight back. And that's a very difficult position. Or it'll take a lot of teaching jobs away. I'm just touching the basics there. I'm not even going to some other things. It's going to create mass efficiencies, and it's going to create also, on the upside, it's going to create incredible efficiencies in using robotics and manufacturing systems, so on and so forth.
What is AI? You said AI 4. What's AI 4?
AI 4 is a higher level where some of the scientists in MIT and some of the other universities believe that at this point it can somewhat, I've got to be careful how I say this, think for itself. Right now, it's programmed, right? Like, I mean, when I'm writing another book now, and I might ask it for an opinion on my book, and it's not at that level yet, but it's going to be at a level where it can start thinking on its own. Once you start thinking on your own, it'll go, well, it could be very dangerous, and it could damage humans as well, because who's going to control, who's going to arbitrate AI? That's another philosophical question. The government? Good luck.
So what are the other, if AI 4 is when it can think, what are the other levels? If you could walk me through 1, 2, 3.
Well, the other levels it's going to be so much more intelligent than us. Take the environment for a moment. Take the climate for a moment. It'll turn around and say, I think I can reduce the carbon. Oops, sorry, we killed 1 billion people. I didn't mean to do that. We didn't really mean to kill so much of the wildlife in Africa and India and in North America, other parts of the world. We just started occupying spaces. We started doing things as humans that were perhaps impervious to what AI could do. We're sorry, I'm going to restate that. We're impervious about the damage we could cause to other species. We just took land over, did things, built buildings. AI could do the same kind of thing down the road. Wow.
That's pretty scary. And so these people that think that AI is more of a menace than a benefit Are you one of those people, or do you think AI imbalance is positive?
In the long run, I think it's going to be positive. I don't think it's the genie's going to go back in the bottle anytime soon. I'll give you another example. Hollywood writers, screenwriters, write an essay, write a book, and I go turn it into a 1 hour script, if you will. Go prepare a script in about 3 minutes or so for a book. But in asking yourself, is it a menace? There has to be some type of, I guess there has to be a regulation upon it. But who are you going to trust? Government? You sure?
Well, right now, government's talking about creating some sort of regulation.
Well, they need regulation on themselves first, and then we can maybe talk about regulations on other people. Yeah. So I'm not sure I would trust them. What do you want? The fact checkers? Well, they're compromised as well. They're led by, they're financed, right, for ideological purposes as well. The other thing about the AI is if you really ask it questions, there, I'm writing a book and I go, edit some of this stuff. And I try and write in a reasonably articulate way, but sometimes I get crusty and in your face, something like a left winger or something you need in the playoffs in hockey at playoff time. And it'll tone it down. Anything that's even remotely controversial, it'll cool it down. It's a bit on the woke side right now.
Is that good or bad?
If it's on the woke side?
Yeah, if it tones it down.
Well, I'm not talking about toning down roughness. I'm just talking about anything that's even controversial, Brian. It will woke it.
So is that good or bad?
If it wokes it,
yeah.
Well, that's an abdication of truth. I ask it tough questions. Go into chatbot 4, ask it tough questions, and you'll see where it goes. You can tell that the programming right now, the algorithms are ideologically different. Actually, the whole Silicon Valley is ideologically driven, but that's a separate conversation.
Right. So people complain that it has mistakes. You're saying that these mistakes are no different than the real life mistakes people make, and that we need fact checkers, and we can't trust the fact checkers, and that you're saying that it is ideologically wokeism because of the people that have set it up, and so therefore it has a specific ideological slant. Is that what you're saying?
Slightly. I'm not giving it a wholesale slaughter here, if you will. I'm just saying slightly. It does lean to one side, yes.
So I've used it, and it's given me quotes that don't really exist. It's given me facts in history that don't really exist. It's made things up.
It can. You've got to really watch what it's doing, but you're at the beginning stages. We're at the Model T stages. We're at the stages now where I think there was the school of thought maybe over 120 years ago that if we drove past 20, 30 miles an hour in cars, we'd have heart attacks. We're still in the denial stages. There's still, I don't know if there's such a word. We're still going through the stage of Ludditism. You know what? I'm at an age, I'm going to get ready to retire. This is not going to affect me. Get it away from me. But if you're a kid and you're in high school and you're studying, I'd say even in university, which, I taught for a while, for about 2.5 years. They're coming up with courses. There's going to be no jobs for them. I think I came down too hard on universities or something when I wrote my book, The Practical MBA in Economics. But I've seen what goes on. I talk to students all the time still, and they go, I'm taking courses that are irrelevant. If you're going to go study programming, I don't think you should be studying others. You don't need to study other subjects. You can do that at home. But they fill them in, but that's a separate conversation. So yeah, so many occupations. People go, I'm going to go teach. I'm going to be an English teacher. Good luck. With Grammarly, AI. Good luck.
So English teaching is gone.
I didn't say, yeah.
Truck driving, Uber driving is going to be replaced by autonomous AI drivers. Lawyers and accountants at the junior level are going to be replaced.
They won't be required. So where do the problem becomes, the Achilles heel there, if you will, the problem becomes, Brian, is Where do a lawyer, you got to start them every profession skill, you got to start them somewhere. And where do you start them if AI is doing their entry level work? Give you an example, do some basic accounting, put some accounting numbers and expenses and ask AI chatbot for it to run you a set of balance sheets. It will. It'll do it. And it's only going to get better. When I use the word Model T, it's probably a little bit past that. Because right now you can get any color, at one point you can get any color you want with the Model T as long as it's black, but now you can get other versions of AI. You've got Copilot with Microsoft, you've got ChatGPT. Yeah.
This is pretty scary. So what's the solution? Actually, you know what? We're gonna take a break for some messages and come back and ask about what the potential solutions are in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. We're talking about the future of mass unemployment with AI. And we're talking about the potential impact on democracy. Joseph has written a couple of other books and other topics. We might touch on them in regards to the cost of wokeism and why the Fed is having trouble reducing interest rates. Interesting conversation tonight. Stay with us, everybody. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Joseph Gulesserian. Fascinating gentleman. He's an entrepreneur in the consumer products business. He has developed and brought brands to market in international markets, the health and beauty space. His business travels have taken him through Europe, Far East, Central America, and South America. He is a former professor of management studies where he taught corporate finance, statistics, and postgraduate marketing. He has spoken at companies like Sun Life, has appeared in the media, including the Wayne Allen Root Show, Andy Tanner's Cashflow Academy, Greg Krinko, Todd Schwolmaker, The Brian Nichols Show, and now the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. He's a published author of the book, The Practical MBA on Economics, What They Do and Don't Teach You at Business School, which is available on Amazon. He's also currently writing a new book called The Guerrilla Guide for Entrepreneurs. We've just been chatting about artificial intelligence and how it's going to, he worries, create mass unemployment. You also said you think it's going to be the end days for democracy. Why is artificial intelligence going to lead to the end days for democracy?
Well, let me give you an example of that. That might be a good or not so bad thing. Anyways, Plato had other opinions on that. He called democracy the beginning of the end of what was once a great civilization. But we won't go there. But what I will say is this. I've got 22% of people in this country, in Canada, let's say, working in the government. When you have this mass unemployment, they're going to ask for more government, not more freedom, more government. And what's going to happen is government's going to introduce universal basic income. So once I have universal basic income, we start talking about CDC, central digital bank currencies, if you will. And I'll park that aside for a moment. So let's say if you have 30% unemployment, you got 22% of people working in the government, you got 10 or 12% of people at this point, at some type of government assistance. I've got your 50, 60% of the votes there. So what I will do is you can stay home, work will become blasphemous. You can stay home, watch all your Netflix, government will give you money, will tax you on your UBI, but you go, okay, Joe, you're not doing the numbers here. Where are you getting this tax base? No problem. We're going to have trillion-dollar corporations. When it's election time, I'm going to vilify the corporations. That's what I'm going to do. At the same time, they're my donors. We don't talk about that part. I'm in the political class now. And they get monopoly profits in exchange for higher taxes, and everybody's relatively doing not bad. At the same time, those small and medium businesses and those industrialists, people who work and work and work, we're going to tax them till the cows come home. So I got a tax base primarily from the trillion-dollar corporations that will have monopoly profits in exchange for paying higher taxes, and they'll be happy. They will work with the government to help create this, right? And you had a good example of it with what went on in the Silicon Valley and some of the things that came on during the pandemic. So that's your tax base. Trillion-dollar corporations, government vilifying them when they're in bed with them. They are going to pulverize a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. Some will survive, Brian, because we always have to have examples of, look look, they rose from the small and the medium, and they became the large corporation. That'll happen because you have to give them some sense of hope. So once you have large government, I ask you yourself, and I ask your listeners, can you give me a historical example of large government and freedom existing in the same sentence?
No.
I can't think of any. I better bring out some more history books. I better go read Marcus Aurelius again. In fact, I brought it out there for me this morning. Anyways, go ahead. So that's where you're going to see this, because once I've got you hooked, I put you in the Stockholm syndrome. You're so happy. You're at election time. I'll get you free Netflix. You'll vote for me. I'll reduce taxes on we'll call them simple products, if you will, and you'll vote for me. So once I've got you hooked, I've made you docile. You're allowed to vote. It'll be door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. And you'll have your democracy, but you're basically voting for 3 separate villains.
So if we've got this universal basic income, we call it guaranteed annual income in Canada when it's been considered. Why, by definition, do we all become docile and not care about democracy anymore?
Well, we become docile because I have no purpose in life. My purpose is I get up in the morning and I, have my coffee, I drink, I do nothing. I have no sense of internally creating anything. Are we, let's go back to the Brave New World. If I did not experience pain, how could I even understand pleasure in this world? We need a sense of purpose. I think the sense of purpose is what built the Western empires, which are, eroding at this stage. It's undeniable. But we had a sense of purpose. Henry Ford, Edison, Musk, I can go on, Gates, Jack Ma with Alibaba, all senses of purpose. I'm giving you away some of my new book here on the Guerrilla Guide for Entrepreneurs, but they all had a sense of purpose.
Okay, so is the problem here AI, or is it these trillion-dollar corporations that have monopoly profits?
The problem really is how the political class will further want in the West. And, we already know in the East, you're going to see, and I'm kind of getting, well, actually, I'll mention the word. I think the problem is we are already in, and we're going to have a more accentuated neo-totalitarianism in the West. And that's what you're going to see. More government, large government, because every time I'm in a crisis, I'm Joe Sixpack here, I need more government. What's the government going to do? So here we go. And, it depends how you think. I'm not saying, government has a purpose, obviously, in our society, but not at this size.
Neo-totalitarianism?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah. You got a great feel of it during COVID, didn't we?
Whether what? Controlling us, telling us what to do?
The actions of the government, yeah. I mean, quintessentially, it was a failure.
Why was it a failure?
All of it. Well, I'm not going to go deep into it, but the vaccines didn't work. The masks didn't work. Their programs of isolating people didn't work.
So you think government was just trying to control our lives?
I'm going to turn the tables a little bit here. I'm going to put a different school of thought here, right? I think, they were controlling our lives at one point. You saw how people bent for them. I'll do anything you want. Can I please travel? I need my vacation. I'm not going to go deep into that road. That's a separate, I think you should go interview Robert Kennedy for that and read the real Dr. Anthony Fauci. But what I was going to say to you is it just added to their, this is my view, I guess, it just added to their unmitigated lineage of disaster. And in my book, I actually talk about the Great Depression. I have a complete chapter on Hoover and FDR on why their industrial recovery program was a complete disaster. But it prolonged the Great Recession, Depression, if you will, in the 1930s, right up till the Americans got involved in the war, I believe, in 1941. So, it's just another disaster. I just took that case there. No accountability.
So you say that the government wants to control our lives and and docile people are accepting, if not encouraging of that, is, I guess, your argument.
You're giving me money. I'm not, if you're giving me free money for doing nothing, I'm not going to bark back. Government will, I think I read this somewhere, and I'll say it in my own words. Government will pretty well say, you know what, we're giving you free money. We're, in a sense, they're going to alleviate us from the burdens of freedom.
Alleviate us from the burdens of freedom.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very
okay. So let's talk about these
$1
trillion corporations. Some people think they should be broken up. Google, Meta, Microsoft, etc. And the example people provide is of AT&T. When AT&T was broken up, the 6 companies that came out of it were worth more than AT&T was within a couple of months, and have ended up creating huge amounts of value long term. So is the monopoly profits and oligopist or monopolist system that we've created in technology with these huge companies a negative?
Well, yeah, the in the United States, they have the antitrust law, specifically the one that I knew a little bit more. I think it was the Sherman Act, and that's where I think Standard Oil, if I'm correct, and the Rockefellers got broken up.
Yeah.
So you're saying, well, let's go to the politicians and break up these monopoly or oligopoly industries. We're talking specifically Silicon Valley, YouTube, and Google should have never been allowed together, but that happened. Twitter, when Elon Musk bought it, he booted out over 170 FBI intelligence agents that were working in Twitter. That's not conspiracy, that's empirical fact. So here's the problem about breaking them up. You have the intelligence agencies working with them. You have the ruling party working with them. You have words used like misinformation. Well, the invention of the word misinformation comes from government. No government, how can you have misinformation in the same toxic sense? So I would be nice to government in this interview. I guess they're going to take me away. But anyways, but in all seriousness, how are you going to break them up when they're expected to? The intelligence agencies rely on Silicon Valley.
So you don't think they're going to be broken up, even though right now the Biden government is actually looking at that. You don't think it's going to happen, but should it happen?
That's a moral question. I agree, it should happen. I think Google should be broken up. I believe Meta should be broken up. I'm not sure about Twitter, but Twitter is Elon Musk is not writing, and I'm giving away my economics book. At the end, I wrote a chapter called "The Future of Tomorrow." He is not reading off the script of the political class. And if you read the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, any of the papers, there's always, every couple of days, even Yahoo Finance, there's a little bleep thrown in at Elon Musk that, he's bad, blah, 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 so on and so forth. That's intentional. He has to read off the script. Robert Kennedy has to read off the script. This is the script. Read off the script and you will be rewarded.
And they're not reading off the script. We're going to take a break for another message and come back, and we're going to talk about why the Fed is having trouble reducing interest rates and some other topics that Joseph is pretty prolific in writing about and critiquing. Back in 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. Interesting conversation tonight. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Joseph Gulesserian, entrepreneur in the consumer products business, professor of management studies, and now an author of the book, The Practical MBA on Economics. It's available on Amazon. A new book coming out called The Guerrilla Guide for Entrepreneurs. And we've been talking about how artificial intelligence, he worries, will create mass unemployment. He thinks that there'll be calls, therefore, for a universal basic income or a guaranteed annual income. And he believes that after that, we'll become docile, we won't care, and it'll be the end of democracy. And that these trillion-dollar corporations in bed with government end up really controlling our lives and to our detriment. And I guess you think it's the end of capitalism or small business capitalism.
Well, yeah, you're going to get more like crony capitalism. You know, free markets are not perfect either. Everything's got its pluses and minuses, but even though I'm a proponent of the free markets, we don't really have that right now. No.
Crony
So
capitalism.
crony capitalism. Yeah.
So one of the other topics you wanted to talk about is why is the Fed having trouble reducing interest rates?
That's a fair question. Well, first of all, it's a CPI index, and we're going to talk about the U.S. Fed, and we can talk about the Bank of Canada. I follow the U.S. as a Canadian more than I should. I should be following more of Canada. But the problem with reducing interest rates is this. You've already got inflation. I'm going to talk about, let's say the CPI numbers came in at 3.4 or so just recently. The problem is, if you look at a place called Shadow Statistics, inflation's running close to 9.5%, 10%. Remember, these are government figures, right? So let's go for the 3.7%. Let's come back to Canada for a moment. Everybody in real estate in Canada is saying, well, you know, we need to reduce interest rates to really stimulate the housing market. Well, you're in a catch-22. Let's talk about the youth, because the youth are the ones most at peril, right? When we were a bit younger, Brian, houses were affordable. And I don't want to hear about government coming in and saying making houses affordable. Here's your problem. My house is worth $1 million in 2023 before interest rates started really coming up. Now it's worth $900,000. Wow, that's less. But when I put a mortgage on it, it's still worth $1 million after I pay my interest payments. I wrote about this in my book. In other words, when interest rates go down, any savings you make on the interest rates will be built into the future value of your home. In other words, your house price will come up and you'll pay less on mortgage. So it's a zero-sum game. So that's the issue we're at right now. So in terms of that, government can't easily, in the Bank of Canada can't go, well, why don't we just reduce interest rates? I'm going to give you two examples of why they can't. First of all, if the U.S. is keeping interest rates high and we keep our interest rates low, our currency will get damned even more. Okay, it's running at about 1.36 this morning against the U.S. It should be running closer to 1.22. So if your currency weakens, they go, yeah, so what do I care? I'll tell you why you care. You care because you're going to import inflation on everything you bring into this country. You're going to have massive inflation there. So what you see, we're not used to pain in the last 10, 20, 25 years. But in the 1970s, if you studied, Paul Volcker and the history of the Feds and the time of Nixon, and you had to study all that stuff, basically inflation went like this. And right now, with Canada's housing market, which they're begging the Bank of Canada to bring down interest rates, but it's still going to make homes unaffordable because the price will go up. You saved me, you gave me a kiss on one side, I get a slap on the other. The kiss is lower interest rates, the slap is higher home prices. I own a home, so I'm happy.
Yeah. Joseph, if people want to follow you, what's the easiest and best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. You can look up my name there. I'm also on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel as well where I put up some of my videos, like the lovely one here. So I'm all over the social media. I'm not too hard to find.
And these two books are?
Well, the two books is the first one is the Practical MBA on Economics, what they do and don't teach at business school. And the second one is the Guerrilla Guide for Entrepreneurs. And that's written, it's just being edited.
Real pleasure meeting you and chatting tonight. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thanks for having me on your show. And you have yourself a lovely day.
We're going to take a break and come back with a few other comments in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody.